The whale had been circling the research vessel for 40 minutes. Not around it, beside it, close enough that the crew could see the texture of its skin from the railing. Surfaced, blew, and went under. 2 minutes later, it was back. Same side of the ship. Same slow, deliberate movement. Marine biologist Dr. Yuki Tanaka had been studying humpbacks in this ocean corridor for 6 years. She had never had a whale choose to stay this close to the vessel for this long. On its 7th surfacing, she finally saw why. The rope was wrapped around the base of the left pectoral fin, 3 or 4 coils of heavy monofilament line, cutting into the skin, trailing 3 meters of ghost net behind it in the water. The fin was moving, but barely. The animal was carrying it every dive, every surfacing, every hour of every day. The whale wasn't circling them randomly. It was showing them. The research vessel Sepia was a converted patrol boat, 32 feet, running a 2-week survey of humpback migration patterns in the open water of the mid-ocean corridor. The work was methodical. Drift to a position, deploy hydrophones, listen, note the acoustic signatures, move on. For crew members, 2 researchers, a set of protocols built around observing without disturbing. Disturbance was a term with a specific meaning in marine mammal research. Any action that altered the animal's natural behavior. Getting close was disturbance. Following was disturbance. The research the Sepia team did was good precisely because it kept its distance, which made what was happening now professionally complicated. The humpback had first appeared at 7:40 in the morning as a blow on the eastern horizon, the tall, V-shaped exhalation that made humpbacks identifiable at a distance. Yuki had noted it in her log and continued the hydrophone deployment. In her experience, whales in the corridor were aware of research vessels and treated them with a calculated indifference that suited both parties. By 8:15, the whale was beside them. She had watched it on the first 3 passes and seen nothing unusual, the typical surfacing pattern, the blow, the brief sight of the dorsal fin and back, the descent. On the 4th pass, she had seen that it was surfacing on the same side each time and moving slightly more slowly than expected. On the 5th, she had raised her camera and taken a burst of identification photographs. On the 6th pass, she had shown the photographs to her field partner, Adrian, without comment. He had looked at them for a moment and then said, quietly, "It's entangled." She had already seen it. She had been looking at the photograph of the left pectoral fin, the fin partially raised above the waterline on the whale's last surfacing, as if the animal had angled its body to present it clearly, and the rope was there, unmistakable. Not fresh rope, old, a braided line, the kind that came off fishing gear and drifted until it found something to hold. "How long has it been carrying it?" Adrian asked. From the condition of the skin at the contact points, she looked at the photograph. The rope had abraded a dark line into the white skin of the fin. Not a fresh wound. Weeks, maybe longer. The whale surfaced again. Closer this time, within 8 meters of the hull. Yuki put down the camera and looked at it directly, at the eye visible above the waterline for a moment before the animal tilted to blow. Large, dark, calm. It was not thrashing. It was not in acute distress. It was doing what it had apparently decided to do. Come to this boat, surface here, and surface again. She turned to the radio. The disentanglement protocol that the Marine Research Authority maintained for this ocean region required notification of the Regional Marine Mammal Stranding Network, assessment of the entanglement severity, and, if conditions and expertise permitted, a deployment of trained disentanglement personnel. The Sepia carried a basic disentanglement kit, knife poles, a rescue line, emergency buoys, and both Yuki and Adrian were trained in Level 1 disentanglement assessment. Level 2 operations, actual cutting of gear on a live large whale, required additional personnel. She called the network. She described the situation. A large adult humpback with monofilament entanglement on the left pectoral fin, the animal voluntarily remaining close to the research vessel, position, and current conditions. The network coordinator on the other end of the call was brisk and experienced. She asked 3 questions, received 3 answers, and said, "I have a level 2 team 2 hours out. Can you maintain contact with the animal?" Yuki looked over the railing. The humpback was at the surface, its blow drifting downwind, its eye again briefly above the waterline. "I don't think maintaining contact is going to be our problem," she said. The Level 2 disentanglement team arrived in a rigid inflatable boat at 10:47, 2 hours and 12 minutes after Yuki's call. In that time, the humpback had made 19 more approaches to the sepia dash. Yuki had logged each one: side, distance, fin presentation, duration. On 11 of the 19, the left pectoral fin had been angled upward at the surfacing, the fin partially raised, the entanglement visible. The team leader was a man named Callum who had been running disentanglements in this region for 8 years. He came aboard the sepia first, looked at Yuki's photographs and her log, and spent 2 minutes at the railing watching the whale before he spoke. "The fin presentations," he said. "Has it been doing that consistently?" 11 out of the last 19 surfacings on the port side. He looked at her. "Do you know what that is?" "It's showing us the fin. It's showing us the fin," he said. "I've seen it twice before. Both times in animals with long-term entanglements. The behavior develops, I don't know how to put it precisely, over time. Like they've worked out that raising the affected limb near a boat produces a response." He went back to the RIB. He and his partner Sasha suited up in survival gear and took the cutting equipment, the hooked knife poles, the safety lines, and moved the RIB to the port side of the sepia, positioning themselves between the ship and the whale's approach path. The humpback surfaced at 11:14. It came in at its usual speed, its blow visible 10 meters out, and when it reached the RIB it slowed noticeably, in the way that large animals slow when they are doing something intentional rather than just moving through space. It surfaced to blow less than 3 meters from Callum's position, and it angled, the same movement Yuki had been logging for 2 hours, so that the left pectoral fin broke the surface. Callum extended the knife pole. He worked quickly and without sudden movements, the specific economy of someone who had done this many times and knew that speed and calm were both required. The first coil of monofilament parted. The second, the trailing net section dropped away from the fin and began to sink. The third coil was the deepest, the one that had abraded the skin. It took 2 passes of the knife. When it parted, Callum pushed the debris clear of the RIB with the pole and it sank, trailing behind them for a moment before the weight took it down. The whale did not move during any of this. It held its position. His breath came slowly. The fin was in the water again now, moving freely, the full range of motion restored, the limb that had been bound for weeks or months suddenly unencumbered. For 30 seconds after the last rope fell away, nothing happened. The whale was at the surface, breathing, the RIB beside it, the sepia beyond. The ocean was quiet. Yuki, watching from the deck railing, did not move. Then the humpback dove. It went down cleanly, the flukes rising and then disappearing, the water closing over the spot. They watched the surface for 30 seconds. A minute. The hydrophones, still deployed, picked up the first vocalization at 2 minutes, a long, low tone that the recorder logged automatically, the frequency at the bottom of the audible range. The whale surfaced again at 4 minutes. Not beside the sepia this time. 40 meters away, on the open water side, moving north. It blew twice. It dove again. It did not come back. Yuki wrote the incident report that evening at the research station. She filled in the entanglement assessment form, the species, the gear type, the location of the entanglement on the body, the condition of the animal, the outcome. She attached her photographs and her observation log. She wrote the narrative section more slowly. The form asked for behavioral observations relevant to the disentanglement operation. She described the approach pattern, the surfacing behavior, the fin presentations. She described Callum's identification of the behavior as a learned response in long-term entanglement cases. She cited the 2 prior cases he had mentioned. She stopped before she wrote the conclusion and looked at her log. 26 surfacings in 2 hours and 47 minutes. 19 on the port side.
11 fin présentation.
A whale that had been carrying a rope for weeks, possibly months, that had chosen to spend the morning beside a research vessel and repeatedly present the affected limb until the problem was addressed. She was a scientist. She wrote what was observable and what was documentable. She did not write the thing she had been thinking about since 1047. That the behavior in her log was not the behavior of an animal acting on instinct alone. Instinct did not produce 11 repetitions of a specific spatial presentation directed at a specific object. A boat, a crew, the equipment visible on a deck. What produced that was something closer to communication. Not language, she was careful about that word, but directed behavior. Behavior that expected a response and modified itself when the response was insufficient. Behavior that, over 26 surfacings, had finally produced the response it was looking for. The rope was gone. The fin was free. The whale was 40 kilometers north by the time she filed the report, following the migration corridor that it had been following when the gear first caught it, however many weeks ago that had been. She thought about that, about the weeks between the entanglement and the morning beside the sepia dash. What it had done with the problem before it found the boat. Whether it had approached other vessels and been ignored, or whether it had been alone out there on the open ocean with no boats to approach at all. She filed the report. She went up on deck. The ocean was dark now, the last light gone from the western sky. The hydrophones were still in the water. She could see the cable from where she stood. She listened, in the way that people who study sound listen even without instruments, for something she could not have named. The ocean was quiet. The whale was out there somewhere, moving north through the dark water with both fins working, following the route it had always followed, going where it needed to go. She had given it back something it had lost. Or rather, it had come to the right boat on the right morning, and stayed long enough that someone had finally seen what it was carrying. She went back below. She had data to process and the next survey position to reach before dawn. The ocean continued its business around the hull of the sepia dash, cold and vast and full of animals working through their lives with whatever tools they had.